Montgomery County Sheriff's deputies have made an arrest following the shooting death of an Alabama State University student. This is Rogers McCloud Jr. He was taken into custody and charged with capital murder. He's being held without bond. McCloud is accused of shooting and killing his girlfriend, Gennia Grime, in the town of Pike Road. The crime scene was at a convenience store off Highway 80 in the Wall community.
This dancer was shot in the head by her own boyfriend and father of her 9-month-old baby. A horrific end to what should have been a bright future. Gennia Grime, just 21 years old and known to many as Purple Doll, was found dead on Highway 80 in Alabama, her life cut tragically short by the man who claimed to love her. Rogers McCloud Jr., a football player at Alabama State University where Genia performed with the celebrated Honey Bees dance team, called 911 with what detectives called an unbelievable story. He claimed Genia had suddenly taken her own life during an argument in their car, but investigators said the physical evidence didn't match his tearful story. The truth seemed to be something else. Genia had earlier told her friends and her mom that she had been planning to leave the relationship. The relationship no longer served her as it had become abusive, but he couldn't let her go. The vibrant dancer who had captivated audiences with her talent and charisma became another victim because she tried to leave. This is the story of Gennia Grime. We're going to tell you more about her life and circumstances surrounding her death. Welcome to Crazy Dark Files, where we shed light on the darkest true crime stories to help raise awareness and promote safety. By liking this video, sharing, and subscribing, you're not just following a channel. You're helping give voice to the victims and also helping others become more aware and safety conscious.
Grimes was a 21-year-old criminal justice major at ASU. Investigators say her death appears to be an incident of domestic violence.
We've been thoroughly investigating that case all week, and ever since last Thursday, our investigators have been wide open. Sheriff Cunningham gives us all the technology and support so our investigators can go out and operate efficiently and find out the true facts of this case.
Gennia Grime grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, where she developed a close and loving relationship with her mother, Geneva Grime. Their bond was special. They maintained regular contact even after Genia moved away to attend college, with Geneva serving as a constant source of support and guidance in her daughter's life. Known to many as Purple Doll, Genia had established herself as a talented dancer whose skills earned her a coveted position on Alabama State University's Honey Bees dance team. The Honey Bees are a celebrated plus-size dance squad that has gained national recognition for their impressive performances and for challenging stereotypes about body type in dance. As a member of this team, Genia contributed to their reputation for combining technical skill with expressive performance. At just 21 years old, Genia was balancing her commitments as a college student at Alabama State University with her passion for dance. Her dedication to both academics and performance demonstrated her work ethic and determination. Friends and family described her as focused and ambitious, with clear goals for her future. Beyond her academic and dance pursuits, Genia had taken on perhaps her most important role, that of mother to her young son, who was only 9 months old at the time of her death. She shared this child with Rogers McCloud Jr., a football player also attending Alabama State University. Despite the challenges of being a young mother while pursuing her education and dance career, Genia remained committed to creating a bright future for herself and her child. The Honey Bees dance team provided Genia with a platform to showcase her talents and connect with an appreciative audience. The team's performances at university events and beyond allowed her to develop as a performer while representing Alabama State University. Her participation in this group spoke to both her dance abilities and her comfort with being in the spotlight. Those who knew Genia described a young woman with dreams and potential. She had built a life that included academic pursuits, artistic expression through dance, and motherhood, all before the age of 22. Her presence on campus and as part of the Honey Bees made her a recognizable figure at Alabama State, where she had found a community that appreciated her talents. Genia's story was one of promise and possibility. a young woman from Atlanta who had found her place at Alabama State University, pursuing her education while expressing herself through dance and beginning the journey of motherhood. She had every reason to look forward to a future filled with opportunity and achievement. Tragically, that future would be cut short under circumstances that would shock her family, friends, and the entire university community. The young dancer who had brought so much energy and talent to the Honey Bees would never perform again. Her life ended by the very person who should have been supporting her dreams. Gennia Grime and Rogers McCloud Jr. met at Alabama State University, where both were students pursuing their respective interests, she as a dancer with the Honey Bees team and he as a football player. Their relationship developed during their time at the university, eventually leading to the birth of their son, who was 9 months old at the time of Genia's death. While the public image of their relationship may have appeared normal to casual observers, behind closed doors, the dynamic between Genia and McCloud had grown increasingly troubled. According to information that emerged after her death, Genia had been contemplating ending the relationship with McCloud. This desire to separate represented a significant turning point in their story, one that would ultimately have tragic consequences. The relationship had shown signs of strain that friends and family later identified as concerning. Though they maintained appearances as a young college couple raising their child together, tensions were building beneath the surface. McCloud's behavior toward Genia reportedly displayed patterns of control that are often recognized in troubled relationships. As their relationship progressed, Genia began to express to those close to her that she wanted to leave McCloud. This decision wasn't made lightly, especially considering they shared a young child. However, Genia had reached a point where she felt separation was necessary for her well-being and future. The challenges of co-parenting likely complicated Genia's decision-making process. As a young mother still pursuing her education and dance career, she faced difficult choices about how to move forward while ensuring stability for her child. These considerations would have added layers of complexity to an already difficult situation. In the period leading up to her death, the relationship had deteriorated further. The exact nature of their conflicts wasn't publicly detailed, but it became clear that Genia's desire to leave the relationship had intensified. This intention to separate created a volatile situation that would ultimately lead to the tragic events on Highway 80. Experts in domestic violence often note that the period when someone attempts to leave a relationship can be particularly dangerous. For Genia, her decision to seek independence from McCloud coincided with an escalation in tension between them. The relationship had reached a breaking point, with Genia looking toward a future separate from McCloud. What makes this case particularly heartbreaking is that Genia was taking steps toward a new chapter in her life, one that she would never have the opportunity to experience. Her plans to move forward independently were cut short in the most tragic way possible, leaving her family, friends, and community to grapple with both grief and questions about what might have been done to prevent such an outcome. The relationship between Genia and McCloud serves as a sobering reminder of how situations can escalate to violence, particularly when one partner seeks to end the relationship. The dynamics that led to that fatal day on Highway 80 reflect patterns that domestic violence advocates work tirelessly to address and prevent. While specific details of her final hours remain private to those who knew her best, what is known is that Genia attended her classes and responsibilities at Alabama State University as usual. As a dedicated member of the Honey Bees dance team, she likely participated in team activities or rehearsals as part of her regular schedule. The morning began like many others for the 21-year-old mother and student. She tended to her 9-month-old son and prepared for another day of balancing her academic and parenting responsibilities. At some point during the day, Gennia and Rogers McCloud Jr. found themselves together in a vehicle traveling along Highway 80 in Alabama. What exactly transpired inside that vehicle remains partially known only to McCloud himself. What is certain is that during their drive, a fatal gunshot was fired. The bullet struck Genia in the head, causing catastrophic injuries that would prove fatal. The young dancer, known as Purple Doll to her followers and friends, lay mortally wounded as the vehicle came to a stop along the highway. It was McCloud who contacted emergency services. When first responders arrived at the scene on Highway 80, they found Genia with a gunshot wound to her head and McCloud present at the scene. Emergency medical personnel immediately began life-saving measures, but the severity of Genia's injury left little hope for recovery. McCloud told a story to the responding officers that would quickly fall apart under scrutiny. He claimed that during an argument in the car, Genia had suddenly produced a gun and shot herself in the head, a suicide in the midst of their dispute. This version of events became the initial narrative as emergency responders worked frantically to save Genia's life. She was rushed to a nearby hospital in critical condition. Medical staff fought to stabilize her, but the injury was too severe. Gennia Grime was pronounced dead, leaving behind her infant son, her grieving mother, and a community of friends, classmates, and fellow dancers who couldn't comprehend the sudden loss of the vibrant young woman. As news of the shooting spread across the Alabama State University campus and reached Genia's family in Atlanta, shock and disbelief were the immediate reactions. Her mother, Geneva, received the call that every parent dreads. Her daughter had been shot and was fighting for her life. By the time Geneva could make arrangements to travel to Alabama, Genia had already passed away. Meanwhile, investigators began the process of examining the evidence from the scene on Highway 80. From the beginning, aspects of McCloud's account raised questions among law enforcement. The physical evidence at the scene, including blood spatter patterns and the position of the weapon, didn't align with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The angle of the bullet's entry and other forensic details contradicted the suicide narrative that McCloud had provided. As detectives dug deeper, they interviewed friends and acquaintances of both Genia and McCloud. A clearer picture began to emerge. One of a relationship that had been deteriorating and of Genia's desire to leave. This information, combined with the physical evidence, led investigators to doubt McCloud's version of events. Within days of the shooting, law enforcement had gathered enough evidence to challenge McCloud's account. When confronted with the inconsistencies in his story and the forensic evidence that contradicted his claims of suicide, McCloud's narrative began to change. The shifting details further convinced investigators that they were dealing not with a suicide, but with a homicide. On January 23, just 4 days after Genia's death, Rogers McCloud Jr. was arrested and charged with capital murder. The charge reflected the severity of the crime and the evidence suggesting that McCloud had deliberately taken Genia's life. The football player who had called 911 claiming his girlfriend had taken her own life now faced the most serious charges in Alabama's criminal justice system. For Genia's family, the arrest brought a measure of validation to their instinctive disbelief of the suicide claim. Gennia Grime had insisted from the beginning that her daughter would never take her own life, especially with her young son depending on her. The charges against McCloud confirmed what she had known in her heart, that someone else was responsible for her daughter's death. The tragedy on Highway 80 left a 9-month-old boy without his mother, a mother without her daughter, and a community confronting the harsh reality of relationship violence that had ended in the worst possible way. What state are you watching from? Have you seen domestic violence warning signs ignored in your community? Drop a comment below. Your experiences might help someone recognize a dangerous situation before it's too late. When first responders arrived at the scene on Highway 80, they encountered Rogers McCloud Jr. standing beside the vehicle, visibly distressed. Inside sat Gennia Grime with a catastrophic gunshot wound to her head. McCloud immediately told officers that Genia had shot herself during an argument, a claim that would become the center of the investigation. From the outset, experienced detectives noted inconsistencies in McCloud's account. They refused to believe that it was a self-inflicted injury. In fact, one detective later noted that the physical evidence told a completely different story than what we were hearing. The investigation accelerated when forensic specialists processed the scene. Gunshot residue tests, blood spatter analysis, and the trajectory of the bullet all pointed away from suicide and toward homicide. The medical examiner's preliminary findings further contradicted McCloud's version of events, indicating that the angle and distance of the shot made it nearly impossible for Genia to have fired the weapon herself. As investigators collected evidence from the vehicle, they also gathered Genia's personal effects, including her phone. Text messages and conversations with friends revealed her intention to end the relationship with McCloud, establishing a potential motive that directly challenged the suicide narrative. Within 48 hours, investigators had compiled enough evidence to seriously doubt McCloud's account. When brought in for additional questioning, his story began to shift. Details changed about where exactly they were when the shot was fired, who had possession of the gun, and what the argument had been about. These inconsistencies only strengthened investigators' suspicions. By January 23, just 4 days after Genia's death, police had gathered sufficient evidence to make an arrest. Rogers McCloud Jr. was taken into custody and charged with capital murder. The charge, the most serious in Alabama's criminal code, reflected both the severity of the crime and the evidence suggesting premeditation rather than a heat-of-moment action. News of the arrest sent shockwaves through Alabama State University. Students who had known both Genia and McCloud struggled to reconcile the image of the football player they knew with the charges he now faced. The Honeybees dance team, having lost one of their own, held a memorial performance in Genia's honor, dancing with a visible empty spot in their formation where she would have stood. The university administration responded with an outpouring of support for Genia's family and resources for students affected by the tragedy. Counseling services were expanded, and several campus organizations hosted discussions about relationship violence. The president of Alabama State released a statement expressing profound sadness at the loss of a bright, talented young woman whose future held such promise. In Atlanta, Genia's mother Geneva faced the unimaginable task of planning her daughter's funeral while also taking custody of her 9-month-old grandson. The community rallied around the family, establishing a memorial fund to support both Geneva and the infant boy, who would now grow up without his mother. "My daughter was not suicidal," Geneva stated firmly in her first public comments after McCloud's arrest. "She had everything to live for: her son, her education, her dancing. She had plans for her future. I knew from the moment I heard what happened that someone took her from us. She didn't leave by choice." As the case moved toward trial, prosecutors built their case methodically. The grand jury indictment detailed how the evidence contradicted McCloud's initial claims. The weapon, registered to McCloud, had his fingerprints positioned in a way consistent with firing the gun, not with Genia handling it. The bullet's trajectory indicated it was fired from the driver's side of the vehicle, where McCloud had been sitting, not from the passenger seat where Genia was found. For Genia's family, each revelation brought both pain and validation. Their insistence that she would never take her own life was being confirmed by the evidence. Geneva attended every court proceeding, often clutching a photo of her daughter in her dance uniform, a silent reminder of the vibrant life that had been cut short. "I'm here for justice," Geneva told reporters outside the courthouse after a preliminary hearing. "My daughter can't speak for herself anymore, so I'm her voice now, and I won't stop until the truth is fully known and justice is served." The case against Rogers McCloud Jr. continued to build as investigators uncovered more evidence pointing to his guilt and the tragic end of a young woman whose only crime had been wanting to leave a relationship that had turned toxic. The relationship between Gennia Grime and Rogers McCloud Jr. followed patterns that domestic violence experts identify as common in cases that ultimately turn deadly. While those close to the couple may not have recognized all the warning signs at the time, hindsight revealed a progression of concerning behaviors that escalated toward violence. Jealousy is not romantic. When someone monitors their partner's whereabouts, checks their phone, or becomes upset about time spent with friends or family, that's no longer love. For friends and family who suspect someone they care about may be in a dangerous relationship, experts recommend several approaches to intervention. First, maintain regular contact and create safe spaces for honest conversation without judgment. Simple questions like, "Are you okay?" or "I've noticed some changes. Is everything all right?" can open doors to crucial discussions. Second, Avoid criticizing the person's partner directly, which can cause defensiveness. Instead, focus on specific behaviors and express concern. "I'm worried about how upset you seem when he calls repeatedly," rather than "he's controlling and you should leave him." Third, help the person recognize their own worth and autonomy. Abusive relationships often erode self-esteem, making victims believe they deserve poor treatment or can't survive independently. In the aftermath of Gennia Grime's death, her family faced the difficult task of preserving her memory while caring for her young son. A GoFundMe campaign was established to help with funeral expenses and to provide support for Genia's 9-month-old son, who is now being raised by family members. The community response demonstrated how deeply Genia had touched those around her, with donations coming from fellow students, dance team members, and concerned citizens who were moved by her story. At Alabama State University, Genia's absence was profoundly felt. The university held a memorial service where students, faculty, and staff gathered to honor her memory. The Honey Bees dance team, where Genia had showcased her talents and earned her nickname Purple Doll, paid tribute to their fallen teammate during performances following her death. Her tragic story received media attention throughout Alabama and beyond, bringing focus to the issue of relationship violence among young adults. Local news outlets covered not only the circumstances of her death, but also celebrated her life as a dedicated student, talented dancer, and loving mother. While the legal case against Rogers McCloud Jr. proceeded through the justice system, Genia's story served as a sobering reminder of how quickly relationship conflicts can escalate to violence. Her death highlighted the particular vulnerabilities young women face when trying to leave relationships that have become dangerous. For those who knew Genia personally, her memory lives on through shared stories of her vibrant personality, her dedication to dance, and her love for her son. Though her life was cut tragically short, the impact she made during her 21 years continues to resonate with those who knew her. Cases like Genia's underscore the importance of recognizing warning signs in relationships and having support systems in place for young adults navigating complex relationship dynamics. While her story ended in tragedy, sharing it may help others identify dangerous situations before they escalate. What do you think communities can do to prevent tragedies like this? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories that matter. Your engagement helps spread awareness about these crucial issues, and together we might help someone recognize danger before it's too late. The tragic death of Gennia Grime illuminates a harsh reality that domestic violence experts have long emphasized. The most dangerous moment in an abusive relationship is often when someone tries to leave. This critical insight isn't just statistical. It's a matter of life and death, as Genia's story painfully demonstrates. For those in dangerous relationships, having an exit plan is essential. This means more than just deciding to leave. It requires careful preparation. Experts recommend gathering important documents, securing financial resources, identifying safe places to stay, and most importantly, connecting with professional support services who understand the complexities and dangers of separation. The reality is that many victims of relationship violence feel trapped by love, financial dependence, shared children, or fear. When Genia decided she wanted to end her relationship, she likely had no idea of the danger she was in. This underscores the need for broader awareness about relationship violence dynamics. Communities must create robust support systems that include accessible emergency housing, legal advocacy, childcare assistance, and financial support. These resources can make the difference between a successful escape and a tragic outcome. As viewers of this story, you have power. If you recognize warning signs in a friend's relationship, don't remain silent. If you see concerning behavior, speak up. Your awareness and willingness to act could save someone's life. Remember, relationship violence thrives in silence and isolation. By talking about these issues openly, we honor Genia's memory and potentially prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. If this story touched you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Crazy Dark Files, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next in-depth investigation.